Uh, is everyone able to hear okay? Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Wonderful. So I've been working in the field of tech for 30 years, and as a software developer, database administrator, corporate trainer, business person, business consultant, and so on and so forth, data nerd, if you will. And I've been teaching in the field of higher ed since 2007 in computer science, data science, cybersecurity, and business. So I have a passion for all things technology and also a background in psychology. And so my goal today is to demystify AI. And you're probably wondering, well, what is the relationship between humans and AI? Well, I'm going to get into that uh, and hopefully break down some of the terminology for you. I have a very short PowerPoint just to introduce you to some of the terminology, but I'm also going to talk in addition to some of those points that are on the PowerPoint. So let me go ahead and well, I would like to share it with you. I am not able to share with you. There's not enough permission. So what I will do is I will forego showing you the PowerPoint and just go over some of the information that I was hoping to bring to you. So, AI is a term that is everywhere. I think all of you have heard AI mentioned in the news, in schools, in business arenas, and what have you. So, one of the terms that you may hear about is called Gen AI, and that's generative artificial intelligence or Gen AI. And Gen AI is basically a type of AI that is used to generate content. So, for example, let's say you are a business owner and you want to be able to build a business plan and you're not sure where to start. You can actually ask the AI to it sounds like we got some feedback. You can actually ask the AI to give you some starting points, to give you an outline, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share this now. Let me just bring this back up into slide share mode. And this way, you can see what I'm talking about. I've got some cute little images. Of course, I have to share those images, right? That's what it's all about. The images. Got to have the images. All right. So we're demystifying AI. So Gen AI is basically used to develop content. Now, as a user, you might, let's say in the business space, you might not know where to start with a business plan. So you would basically ask the GPT of choice, and everyone's heard of Chat GPT, using a conversational tone, you would ask to provide a business plan outline. So you literally might type, provide me a business plan outline, or you might qualify that input by saying, provide a business plan outline for a flower shop or for a retail establishment, right? And so the model is going to ingest that conversation into its technology, if you will, into its machine, and it's going to process that information and then generate the output. And typically, because it's conversational in nature, it would basically say, certainly, here's a basic business plan outline, and it would detail that outline very much like an outline that we would be used to. So based on that conversation that you have with the machine, the human is interacting with the machine to ask the machine for content. And that's what Gen AI is all about. Now, in order for that to happen, the machine learning model has to recognize the request, right? So, how does it do that? Well, a GPT is another word for GPT is generative pre-trained transformer. So basically, this is think of it as a farm of neural network models that uh, basically it has been trained using a monstrous amount of content, and that neural network is designed to take whatever request comes from the user and process that information based on what it learned when it trained. So the machine learning model is using natural language processing and artificial neural networks to interpret what the user gives it and then generate a response, or produce that resulting outline or whatever it is you ask for. So So in some cases and in some spaces, people are asking for artwork. So they might want art to be generated based on a particular goal. I want to see a nature scene where there's a lot of birds and perhaps greenery on the trees, or maybe I want an autumn related scene. So the model understands what those things are based on how it's classified the text that was used to train the models. But again, it's a human interacting. So natural language is what we as humans utilize to converse with others and make requests, describe ideas, right? So that's that natural language processing. So the content is delivered, it is generated, and the process again is designed to emulate the human creating the content. The difference is it's quicker. Okay, so that a lot of people are, saying, well, I'm going to lose my job because the GPT is going to replace me. Yes and no. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But from a business perspective, you can make a business case for utilizing GPTs in many environments because of the speed to delivery, right? So the cost to getting this done, the time and effort is minimized, right? But then you have to ask yourself, is there a cost related to other factors that I need to consider? So we're going to talk about that in a second. So, the training of machine learning models. Again, I love data. I'm a data science nerd. I'm. This is one of the things that in the Tech Academy boot camp that we just recently did, students learned about machine learning. And basically, the Chat GPT-4 was trained using a massive corpus of text data using OpenAI, around 45 terabytes of data sets, including web pages, books, and other sources. So when you think about it, that's a lot of information that is being used to train, the Chat GPT. Right? Again, Chat GPT uses AI. AI is what everyone is talking about. So there's many flavors of GPTs. Microsoft has their own GPT. Other entities have their own GPT. Open source, right? When you think about open source and the power of open source, there are GPTs everywhere. So the principle is that you need data to train these models. So a large language model, or LLM, can be prone to inaccurate results because of the massive amounts of data that's thrown at it. Okay. Now, why is that the case? Well, there are issues with the data. The data has cleaning issues. It's dirty. It doesn't have accurate information. So what happens is the text is ingested into the model. The model's just a machine. The model says, "Okay, I've got some text. I'm now going to parse that text. I'm going to tune it and attribute weights to what I see, the patterns I see, and ascribe relevance using a relevance factoring, and then develop a probability that that text being used to answer the question is correct." So I'm predicting that the result that I give back to that user that said, "Hey, help me build a business plan," is accurate and desirable and solves the problem that the user described at the outset, right? So, in every course I teach, we talk about IPO, input, processing, and output. So, this is a classic IPO model. We have input, processing, and output. So, the question becomes, and in teaching my students, my grasshoppers, what is the nature of your input? That's a huge question. It's just as important as two humans communicating with each other. What is the nature of your input, right? So there are risks associated with GPTs. And, there's a lot of talk and discussion about what are these risks? Why are we relying on AI? Why do we care? So I'm going to talk about it first from a data scientist perspective. Okay. As a data scientist, I love data. I love the possibilities of what artificial intelligence can do. I'm a firm believer in social good and making sure that technology and everything that we envision changes our world. Right? It's supposed to support the species as we move forward in our growth mindset, in our dynamic transitioning, as everyone talked about, as we progress through that journey, whatever that journey is. However, from a data science perspective and from a research perspective, we have to think about randomness. So, first thing I'm going to talk about really quick, the generative AI models are non deterministic. What does that mean? It means that they will generate two different responses from the. All right. That's like asking two different people the answer to a question, getting two different answers. Frustrating, right? It's confusing. You're asking yourself, well, where's the truth? I came to this machine and asked it. It's the guru. Why am I not getting truth back? Well, unfortunately, a model that is non-deterministic and without getting to the math and the weeds introduces randomness. So then you have to ask, well, how reliable is it? Right? Those are valid questions. The second issue is target leakage. So, what this means is that when you train a model, you're not supposed to include the target. The target is the outcome, the thing that you're trying to predict. You hold that back from the model as like a secret, and you don't introduce that into the model because that could then introduce bias into the model. The model will basically be influenced in un, un we'll just say an unsavory way. It'll prefer what it sees as the truth, right? So if we produced a result that was given secrets about the truth or the actual outcome, the model will then factor that in to its overall decision making. So that creates what we call target leakage. So how does that happen? Well, when untrained individuals are cleaning the data or doing feature engineering or pre-processing and they accidentally bring the target variable into that process, what happens is the model is tainted. It learns in a way that it shouldn't be learning. Okay. And it remembers those things, and then it's very hard to pull that out of the model. You literally have to build a new model. So rule number one is you have to ask the question, how was the model trained? Instead of just saying, well, I've got this model, it's a guru, I'm going to rely on it. Question is, what is the nature of the data that was used to as input? How was the model trained? What data was used? Those are fair questions. The third thing, and you're going to love this, is hallucination. Hallucination is a risk. Again, these are data science principles, but as business owners, lay people, we want to understand these principles. It model creates what it perceives as confident results. Remember the probability? It's confident in its results, but it invents information. It makes it up. It makes stuff up. Okay. Now, that is called hallucination in the world of data science and GPTs. So that can be very disconcerting for those relying on the GPT or the model as being the be all end all for decision making. Okay. The rule of thumb with data science is it's supposed to provide insight, but everything comes at a cost, right? So we have to think about we can't think linear. We have to think about the system that the model is built with. And by system, I'm talking every system that you know about: societal systems, familial systems, political systems. Every system that you can think about will impact the data that we rely on a daily basis. Remember, the data comes from text, it comes from web pages, it comes from blogs, right? So this data is being utilized, and we know that sometimes that information may not be accurate. So if the model's relying on it, it could have issues. Another risk that's associated is called topic drift. So let's say, going back to my original example of, I'm a business owner, I own a florist, and I want the model to give me an outline for a business plan. Well, the model may actually deliver the business plan outline, but then go into like a segue, kind of go off topic and give us additional things that are not relevant to our initial inquiry. That can be a little frustrating. It can also, the relevance declines the longer the model, engages in that task. So you have to ask about, did I get a core response that actually solves my problem? Or is it factoring in irrelevant information as it moves along? So I think case in point, we can see that there are risks. So let's talk about it from a societal perspective. Just a second ago, I talked about the data science perspective, which some of you might, think, oh, that's boring. I don't want to think about it. Others might say, okay, that's something I want to think about. Societally, we have to think about the deep fakes. Some of you may have heard of deep fakes. So, for example, a GPT can be used to create realistic looking social media posts, pictures, media ads that are fake. So, for example, a politician, a school official, a child could be perceived and shown as making online statements that they never said or posted. That's scary. I teach cybersecurity, and that's something that I'm actually developing a course right now for one of the colleges I teach at to be taught in fall about the risks of using AI, but also the value added to the organization. So everything has to be qualified as a societal consumer. Let's say someone who lives in society, you might be wondering, well, could someone take my driver's license picture and pass it off as, I don't know, as someone that was doing, bad things, crimes or what have you, and post it on social media? Of course, it could happen. So that's something to think about. Another thing is societal bias. So, discrimination in how information is used to portray and treat marginalized individuals. So, spreading quote unquote facts about a minority group, something that could lead to a skewed perspective and resulting behavior, is very dangerous. GPTs, again, if they're ingesting information, data that was written by individuals with biases could be writing information that the model is exposed to. Subsequently, the model then thinks the same thoughts, quote unquote, perceives the same ideas that the individuals that wrote the original text thought, right? So you can see where this is going. The other thing, as a professor, I want my students to engage in critical thinking. That is something that is it's very empowering to watch, but it's also, I push my students to think outside the box. Don't think linear. Well, the model is oftentimes a linear model. Okay, so it relies on, you know um, information very specifically. It's a pathway. But as humans, do we want to engage in that same process? No, because we lose the ability to think critically, which can be dangerous. We want our students to be able to think critically. We want cognitive processing to be at an all-time high. We want computational thought to be at a high. So over reliance on AI can degrade the ability to think critically and exercise good judgment. I've had doctoral students, come to me and say, I need to write a dissertation. I can't think of a topic. I'm going to ask Chat GPT, and I say, really? No, you're not. I won't permit it. Why? Because that thought process has to come from your observation of problems in the world. That's the whole goal for a dissertation. Does it add to the body of research that is out there? And does it solve a problem in the real world? Well, if you're relying on AI is going to be limited to that which it's been exposed to. That will then decrease the ability for innovation in the ideation process. Very, very dangerous. And then, of course, loss of authenticity. Human ideation and any process that's related will be impacted if you overly rely on AI. Um, one of the things is the emotion and essence of being human. That is not factored into the content that the AI has digested. All right. Even in the case of sentiment analysis, it's relying on a group of individuals that express themselves. So that's assuming that all individuals express themselves the same way. That is dangerous because now we lose diversity of thought. We lose diversity of authenticity of many cultures. So we have to be thinking about that as well. So there are rewards associated with GPTs. So again, when you're demystifying AI, it's about balance of thought. Nothing is all good or all bad, right? So from a societal perspective, GPTs can enhance problem solving. The speed by which information can be retrieved can increase the capacity by which you can engage in problem solving, decision making, and insight development. This is whether you're doing it on an individual level or you're doing it in team environment. It can engender thought. And in some cases, if any of you know, you go to a meeting as in a team meeting and everyone says, I've had coffee, but I've got nothing. Right. Brainstorming is not happening. It might be Monday, leap year, whatever it is. Right. So to get the process started, it can be a beneficial catalyst for thought. So ideation, inspiration, and thoughts and ideas can be triggered, and this then leads to spark in the human creativity. It's the humans that take it forward, right? It's not the dependence on machines, it's getting the thoughts triggered. Generation of novel ideas and design formation and solution development is really fundamental to the humans in their current state because those humans are thinking futuristically. Our models are not trained to think in the future. The humans that are sitting in the room that you're in are designed to think about the future. Every day we think about the future. We've been trained to do that. So what do is we look at we directly observe that which is around us and we talk about the future and the possibilities. Also, personalized learning paths. So learning experiences can be tailored to the individual's pace and style of learning. In the education space, this is very important because learning styles vary. We have all different kinds of students coming into the educational space that need to have a personalized learning journey. Well, this can be accomplished with GPTs. This is very similar to quest-based learning, which I used to design algorithms for unlocking quests, which were assignments, because, well, I taught game-based learning. And so how can we take learning to a different level? Well, quest-based learning unlocks based on the user in front of it. So I get the assignment of choice based on what I chose prior. How cool is that? And my learning pace. All right. So, in summary, if I were to sum it up in a nutshell, and again, it's a short talk, so I can't get into all of the tech aspects of it. Generating AI and again, this is generative AI, is important. It is a type of AI that is going to be used now and into the future. It is using large machine learning models, lots of tech. Operatives are jumping on the bandwagon because it is a powerful force to work with, right? We can generate new content. Yay. It's important to understand that these GPTs are used to generate content. It emulates the human, but it cannot replace the human. It creates content quicker, which is great, but is quicker always better? Those are things to think about. Efficiency is measured with lots of different variables. Quicker is not always better. And that's something important. The other thing to think about is AI and the use of GPTs can be risky if not used responsibly. So we have to qualify our process and our penchant for the shiny to ask ourselves, is this in the best interest of the use case in front of us? And last, artificial intelligence and the use of GPTs can lead to rewards if it's understood, aligned with the specific use case, and carefully implemented. That is the most important. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. All right. So I don't know if I can take questions, but I'm going to ask if anyone has questions and perhaps we can take some questions.
Okay.
Can you?
Nope. Still.
If I talk here, Dr. Cynthia, can you hear?
I can.
Hey, I will bring the computer to you.
Excellent.
Or come over here.
Technology is an awesome.
Where's the socket? Socket! You plug in.
We have time for about 3 questions to stay on time. So there, okay, no questions.
Who has a question comes here.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, great. If I want you.
You want to say it? I can repeat it if you.
Yeah, you can say it. Well, if you talk about the bias that AI gives,
So
there's
you
been bias consternation about when it generates faces, tends to generate faces that we most commonly know, not Black, not Hispanic, et cetera. How is AI dealing, how are we dealing with that? The biases that AI generates to begin with. And how do you know it's a
can you
bias?
hear it?
Yes, yes. Okay, so I heard your question basically related to image processing in AI and the generation of faces, for example, of different colors, right? Black, white, what have you, and the accuracy. So this is a huge aspect of discussion right now. Remember, the AI, in order to generate an image, it has to perceive images. So it works with what it was fed. So, for example, if it's told that all people look like Barney and are purple, right? AI will say, okay, all people look like Barney and they're purple. AI doesn't know the difference. So if we feed AI a non-realistic picture of the diversity of society, AI will portray what it believes to be true based on what we give it. And that is fundamentally a problem because the propensity for someone to create bias is high, right? And it could be for a variety of reasons. So this is definitely being discussed. It is something that is needs to be worked on, and something that is recognized as one of the caveats of using AI. So you're definitely correct in that it is an issue. It's recognized as an issue. The question is, how do we solve it? And again, it goes back to humans saying, how can we fix this? So thank you so much for that question.
So my question is, like, you referenced large language models, and a lot of, the information seems to be starting to focus on local language models. So that sort of constraint on data, do you see that helping, harming, like, how do you see that playing out?
Well, that's a very good question. So anytime you choose to localize, you're of course factoring out other things, right? You're slicing off data in the periphery. So anytime you limit yourself to certain data, the extent to which that is valid and or reliable does decline, right? Because you're purposely creating data loss, which limits your ability to understand perhaps the systemic uh, dynamics that are happening. However, if let's say you're focused on a very regional, let's say geographically regional, and that is the goal for the data loss creation, right? The localization, then you can make a case for it. It's no different than doing a research study. What is the nature of our sample? What is the nature of the population? The population might be, uh, elderly individuals who were hospitalized for COVID. Let's say that's the population. The sample might be elderly individuals who were hospitalized for COVID in New York City, and we're going to focus on 5 boroughs. So now you've narrowed it down. So you know ahead of time you've made a case, a research case, or a business case for doing that, knowing the limitations and recognizing how you're limiting yourself. So I can see localized LLMs being a thing, but again, making a specific case for doing that and recognizing any limitations.
I think we almost the entire day asking you questions today. I was fantastic right now. But I want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for waiting. We are gonna be this meeting